I am a 44-year-old woman who recently lost her husband at the age of 48. We spent 20 long years together and married twice during that period. The first was 12 years ago, and then 5 years ago we remarried and began walking through life together again. A few weeks ago, it was discovered that he had cancer, and soon after, there was nothing we could do and he passed away. At first, I was shocked and it was very painful, but now I am able to calmly accept the fact. Time passed, and I have been able to slowly come to terms with it in my heart, cherishing the memories I had with him while looking forward to continuing my life. Even now, I miss his presence terribly, but I can no longer spend time with him. I am not sure if I will ever meet someone I can love as deeply as him, but now I am a little relieved that he is resting peacefully. The last few months, especially, his condition seemed painful, so I am glad that he has finally been released from suffering. Last week, his funeral was finally concluded. While there was a feeling of relief in my heart, I also felt a deep sadness. Honestly, my relationship with my husband's parents was not very good. We hadn't spoken at all for the last 8 years. At one point, my husband decided to cut ties with his family and resolved never to speak to his parents again. There were many reasons for his decision. His parents only saw him as a source of money and showed no affection or consideration for him. Because they did not hide this, my husband chose to completely sever ties with them. Also, my husband had a younger sister named Cindy, who had long struggled with alcoholism, but it seemed that his parents cared more about her than him. Still, he did his best for his parents and sister. He was truly a family-oriented man, but when we started dating, my in-laws did not recognize his efforts and treated him coldly instead. I gradually began to understand how his family was treating him. I told my husband many times to value his own feelings more, but he always forgave his parents' attitude, saying, "I want to be kind because they're family." However, he started to change after we began dating, not just obeying his parents but clearly expressing his own opinions. I told him, "If your family treats you poorly, maybe they're not really the family you need." As our relationship continued, he grew increasingly dissatisfied with his parents, leading to conflicts between them. His parents were confused by his assertiveness and believed I was behind these changes, trying to pull him away from me. However, their schemes did not work, and instead, our bond grew stronger. My relationship with my in-laws was always confrontational, and honestly, it never went well. They consistently behaved terribly towards us, and each time our relationship deteriorated further. Given this background, I was genuinely surprised when Cindy and the in-laws showed up at the funeral. The last time we met, we had a big fight, and we parted on bad terms. Since then, there has been little contact between us, especially between the in-laws and us, and our relationship remained cold. Even after we were married, our relationship with the in-laws did not improve, and we naturally kept our distance from them. However, one year we were invited to a Christmas dinner by the in-laws, and we decided to attend as a minimum courtesy, but this would later turn out to be a big mistake. That dinner would become the catalyst for further cracks in our relationship, because from the moment we arrived, they kept criticizing his new business and assuming it would fail, making it the only topic of discussion. After the party, we questioned the in-laws about their criticism of my husband's business. They said they just wanted him to face reality. They also warned, "You shouldn't follow your sister's example." Actually, Cindy had started a similar business after my husband announced his venture. His business involved recycling plastic products. Unlike Cindy, he conducted market research and had a solid plan. This led to a major argument, and we decided never to contact them again and left the scene. It was clear that Cindy had failed in her business because she lacked my husband's keen intuition and had never made an effort herself, relying solely on his help. 8 years passed, and the in-laws never contacted us. They probably knew my husband had cancer, but despite that, they never reached out or visited us. Yet I was shocked and appalled when they appeared at the funeral. Seeing them for the first time in years stirred mixed emotions in me. During the funeral, I kept a close watch on them, but they didn't act unusually. Still, I couldn't help but wonder why they had come to the funeral. After it was over, they approached me, but I had no intention of accepting their words. I thanked them calmly for their condolences, but told them I did not wish for any further involvement and asked them to leave. I had not wanted deep involvement with them, even when my husband was alive. So now that he was gone, I felt even more that contact with them was pointless and made that clear. Then they stopped pretending and said they had something to talk about. I told them to wait until everyone had left because I was curious about what they wanted to discuss. After everyone had gone, I decided to listen to them outside the venue. Cindy had left with the others without waiting, so it was just me and my in-laws left. They explained that they had debated visiting my husband during his hospitalization, but ultimately decided against it as his condition had worsened significantly. They didn't want to burden him further. Their excuse seemed quite poor given that their son was dying, but I had no expectations from them. I firmly told them that no excuses were needed, and I just wanted them to get to the point. After a long day, I didn't have the energy to waste any more time. My attitude clearly surprised my in-laws, but I thought it was a natural reaction. I felt the reason they had come was probably to say a proper goodbye to their son, my husband. Additionally, I suspected that discussing my husband's inheritance was also one of their motives. It was already clear that I would be taking over his affairs, which everyone should understand by now. That was his wish, and I had supported him in everything, so it was a natural progression. The documents were already prepared. When they broached the subject, I informed them that they had no rights whatsoever. Everything was decided from the beginning, and all legal proceedings were arranged as soon as we knew about his illness. I quickly realized they were trying to involve Cindy in the business, but I had no intention of accepting that. After a brief silence, they asked if they couldn't take over the business. Could they at least inherit some real estate? They expressed a desire to own our house, which we had invested considerable time and effort in designing. Apparently, they thought they could get the house since they had no real estate of their own. They said the house was too big for me to live in alone. They talked about wanting to change their own home, planning to move into ours and rent out their house to increase their income. Hearing this proposal, I was truly shocked. After not contacting us for 8 years, showing up suddenly at the funeral and asking to take over the house we built was utterly unacceptable. I felt outraged and yelled at them to leave. I couldn't stand looking at them. I already harbored significant anger towards them, and I believe they felt similarly towards me, as I had shouted at them twice before. When I raised my voice, they immediately retorted, "We just want to have a calm discussion." But I responded coldly. They didn't like that and said, "You should show more respect to your elders." I quickly rebutted. I pointed out their lack of respect for the deceased, criticizing them for appearing like vultures at this moment, right after my husband had been buried. They were upset that I had rejected their polite request. They threatened to sue for my husband's estate, further complicating the situation. For the record, there was a will, and it stated that all his possessions were to be transferred to me. I couldn't understand why they would make such threats. When they mentioned suing, I thought it was a bad idea. My husband had clearly stated that even if they went to court, they would never win. They blamed me for not speaking to their son for 8 years and for not being able to reconcile, but I didn't accept that reasoning. They believed I manipulated my husband to turn against them and ensured that they would be left with nothing. I was appalled, told them to leave, and after they left, I drove home. At that time, I was so angry that I couldn't think calmly and completely forgot about the video my husband had asked me to show his parents if they came to the funeral. I had completely forgotten about it until I got home and remembered. Indeed, I clearly remembered preparing and recording the video with him a month before he passed away. I knew this video would be very painful for the in-laws. After resting for a few days, I decided to tell my in-laws how they had treated their son, and that the cause was not me, but themselves. A few days after the funeral, I decided to contact them. However, since we were both refusing to communicate, I decided to drive directly to the in-laws' house to show them the video. They were surprised I had come, but I approached calmly, informing them that my husband had left something for them, and I had come to show it. I could feel that they strongly wanted to close the door on me, yet I also felt that they were interested in what I had to say. However, they were curious about the content, so we went to the living room and watched the video together. My husband might have foreseen that his parents would trouble me after his death. That's why he had arranged all the necessary legal measures. The content of the video was him criticizing his parents' past actions. He talked about how his parents treated Cindy specially, always prioritizing her and putting him second. He also talked about the terrible treatment he received from his parents during high school. His parents refused to pay any expenses for his college education, and instead, they partied day and night. Yet, whenever his sister started something, they spared no expense, spending thousands of dollars on her. When he started his first job, his parents were always comparing him and Cindy. At that time, Cindy was making a bit more money than my husband. However, his parents' dismissive attitude toward his startup plans was utterly unacceptable. They never admitted their mistakes, and when my husband was diagnosed with cancer, they avoided talking to him. Now, they have no right to complain to me. My husband thought that leaving them nothing was most fitting for them. In the video, he told them never to appear before me again, and since they had been as good as absent from his life, his death should not matter much to them. Similarly, my husband did not concern himself with his parents or family, because for him, the only true family was me. Those words warmed my heart, and tears involuntarily spilled from my eyes. At the end of the video, the words he spoke about me were particularly impactful, and by the time it finished, the in-laws were at a loss for words. After it ended, I stood up calmly and said, "Even if you sue, I will use this video as evidence that my husband cut off relations with you and left nothing. He had been treated horribly by his parents for years, and they should not blame anyone but themselves. I hope they understand that this situation was not due to my influence or manipulation. Instead of accepting this, they blamed me and accused me of being cruel to show them the video while they were grieving the loss of their son. Furthermore, they claimed I had used an editing app to alter the deceased's face in the video, continuously constructing illogical theories to evade their guilt. When I responded that I had no obligation to prove anything, they called me selfish and said I did not deserve what my husband had left me. They seemed confused while accusing me. Since then, I have wondered if it was right to show them that video. While the in-laws had always treated my husband poorly, they were undeniably his family. I regret showing the video to my in-laws a little. It's been a week since I visited them, and they have yet to contact me. On the day I left their house, they were furious, accusing me of intentionally trying to hurt them, threatening to stop the lawsuit, or instigating them to contest the will. If they wish to proceed in that manner, they are free to do so. However, it would only be a waste of their time and money, as they will gain nothing from it. Still, if they intend to ignore the video's contents and go to court, I will not stop them. Since then, I've been busy every day, with no time to think deeply about this matter. Right now, focusing on work is my top priority. I must face realistic challenges and future considerations without dwelling on grief. I am truly fortunate to have supportive parents. I've been spending these last few days with them, and it's been a great help. When I return home exhausted from work, my parents take care of all the household chores. My father has encouraged me by taking on all the responsibilities my husband used to handle, such as paying bills and shopping for groceries. I am naturally forgetful, so my mother handles the cooking and cleaning. We had a housekeeper before, but she had to leave for personal reasons. I told my parents about it a few days ago, and the next day, they arrived at my house with their bags. I am truly grateful for my parents' kindness and happy that they care so much about me. On the other hand, it seems my in-laws have decided to contest my husband's will. I was informed about this by my husband's lawyer. Nevertheless, I feel that even if they lose the lawsuit, it won't cause a major issue. I was surprised when they sent me an email saying that the method I used to drive them away was wrong. They felt that the video did not prevent them from achieving their goals. To them, what my husband had built should naturally pass into their hands. Because he was their blood relative before he was my partner, they believe they have a stronger right to his estate. They assert not only their right to his property, but also insist they are entitled to the business shares they consider rightfully theirs. However, courts make decisions based on law, not emotions, so their sense of entitlement will likely not help them in the lawsuit. Thinking the email could be useful evidence, I forwarded it to my lawyer. I am still living with my parents, and their support has been very helpful. My parents have also offered to speak with my in-laws to try and resolve the issue amicably. As parents, they believe that negotiating might improve the situation. However, I told my parents that it's fine and that I prefer the in-laws to proceed with the lawsuit. I know that the lawsuit will be a massive waste of time and money for them. My real goal is to have my in-laws exhaust their resources and time. Over the past few weeks, friends and acquaintances have been visiting to express their condolences and concern. Some who could not make it to the funeral have been in touch, and I've been busy with responding to them and my work commitments, leaving little time to deal with my feelings. However, the other day when I went to my husband's office to retrieve some work-related documents, I was unexpectedly overwhelmed with tears. I missed my husband terribly. I could imagine him standing there, and I wished I could tell him how much I loved him and how lonely I felt, but the realization that it would never happen again was heart-wrenching. Now, my sole focus was to ensure our business thrives, keeping the sorrow to myself. I believe doing so honors my husband's memory. He dreamed of us succeeding in building a prosperous life together, and I am committed to fulfilling that dream. It has been about 2 weeks since the in-laws contested the will, but so far, there has been no significant progress. However, something unexpected happened yesterday. I received a message from Cindy. Honestly, I was surprised. Considering our limited interaction and what her parents are currently doing, it seemed odd for her to reach out. We aren't particularly close, nor do we usually exchange messages. I hadn't blocked her, so her message came through directly. The content was that she wanted to talk and asked if she could come to my house. Initially, I felt uneasy and thought about refusing and blocking her immediately, but then I decided to hear her out. I felt it was the right decision to have a proper conversation with Cindy, especially considering her effort to contact me, since it might be related to her parents in some way. Thus, I replied, inviting her to come over. My parents were home, so I wasn't particularly worried. When Cindy arrived, she was holding flowers and offered her condolences. She said she hadn't been able to express her grief at the funeral due to the chaos and wanted to let me know how deeply saddened she was by my husband's passing. Her words were very warm, and I was speechless because they were completely different from the selfish, noisy persona I had associated her with from family gatherings. She seemed to have changed significantly, having quit drinking several years ago, which was clearly evident in her demeanor. Then, she finally got to the main point and told me that her parents were trying to hurt me and that it would be very unpleasant. The in-laws had concocted several lies that my husband had borrowed money from them to start his business, and they were planning to claim that my refusal to meet their demands was because I had to pay them back. Since there was no contract, the in-laws couldn't legally sue me, and instead, they were planning to post about this matter on social media. This plan was utterly foolish, and I couldn't understand why they thought it would work. However, thanks to Cindy informing me, I was able to prevent this in advance. Cindy apologized, explaining that she had been trying to become a better person over the last few years and had thought about reaching out to us several times. However, due to her past behavior towards her brother, she hadn't been able to muster the courage for many years. She regretted that it was too late now that her brother was gone. Suddenly, she started crying, and I didn't know how to respond, but my father quickly came to comfort her, made her tea, and helped her calm down. When she was leaving, calm again, I reassured her that everything would be all right, and that my husband would surely appreciate her efforts. She seemed a bit relieved by this. Even if it took her a long time to realize her mistakes, I believe my actions were not wrong. At least Cindy had regained her composure, something that the in-laws could not achieve. Honestly, I no longer hold any grudges towards her. I had thought the in-laws did not provide enough support to either of their children and favored Cindy, giving her special benefits. But in reality, they were just indulging her, and ultimately, neither child received any real love. I felt very sorry that both of them were so underprivileged. They deserved to have met better parents and lived a more loving life. I informed my lawyer about what Cindy had told me. Ultimately, we decided not to take any action immediately. We planned to wait for the in-laws to make their social media post, which we could then use in court later. I spoke with Cindy as well, and she said she would be willing to testify against her parents if it came to that, so everything was proceeding smoothly. Eventually, the in-laws did make the post on social media. I immediately sent them an email warning that I would take legal action for defamation if they did not remove the post. Although I was hoping they would leave it up, they quickly realized they were fighting a losing battle. Perhaps knowing that Cindy was on our side made them understand that they could not win. They removed the post quickly, but continued to claim that they had not given up on getting everything from me. I was getting quite tired of dealing with them, so I wished them luck and blocked their email address. This allows the in-laws to act however they please now. I sincerely wish them well because I feel they need it. With Cindy no longer on their side, they've become isolated. I plan to watch from afar how they manage to move past this incident.